Check. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Monday, April 14th meeting of the Planning Commission to order and ask Commissioner Opal to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you'll all stand, please, and then follow along. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Moving on to roll call.
Let the record show that all members of the Planning Commission are present at today's meeting.
Great, thank you. That brings us to item A, which is approval of the minutes. Commissioner
I
Dara.
approve that the minutes be approved as written.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item carries. Moving on to item B, public comments. Anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission during the public speaking section or on the agenda item is asked to complete a request to speak form that's available at the door. The completed form is to be submitted to the Planning Commission Secretary prior to an individual being heard by the Planning Commission. Any person wishing to address the Planning Commission on a subject other than those scheduled on the agenda is requested to do so at this time. In order to conduct a timely meeting, there will be a 3-minute time limit per person and an overall time limit of 15 minutes for public comment portion of our agenda. State law prohibits the Planning Commission from taking any action on a specific item unless it appears on a posted agenda. Do we have any speakers tonight?
We have none.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moves us on to the consent calendar, which we have none. So now we're at public hearing and item number 2, which is a site development permit SDP 24-0031 at 34516 Via Verde. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do. Alyssa Gonzalez, Associate Planner.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Alyssa Gonzalez, and I'm the project planner for the project located at 34516 Via Verde. The subject site is located within the RD14 zoning district, as well as Capistrano Beach. It is also located within map area number 5 and Exhibit A of the city's local ADU ordinance. And bordering this site is single-family dwellings as well as duplex dwellings. Here is a picture of the existing structure, which is located on a 5,400 square foot lot. It is 2,053 square feet. As you can see, it's 2 stories, but it's also non-conforming. It has a attached 2-car garage, but the 2-car garage does not meet the minimum dimensions for a 2-car garage, therefore making it non-conforming. Additionally, prior to this site development permit application, code enforcement confirmed that the second story of the single-family dwelling had been illegally converted into a dwelling unit. And approval of the site development permit and issuance of an ADU permit would resolve this code case. Here's some pictures of the adjacent properties. And like I said, some of these are going to be single-family dwellings and some of these are duplex dwellings. Now, the scope of work of the project is to convert the second story of a 2-story non-conforming single-family dwelling, which is non-conforming to parking, into an 872 square foot 1-bedroom attached ADU with a roof deck. Here is the existing site. You can see there is a compliant driveway. The garage, however, is substandard and has a width of 18 feet, but does have the 20-foot depth. Now here's the ADU floor plan. To the left is the existing second story. What is being converted is the bonus room, which is now going to be a kitchen in the living area. The 1-bedroom and bathroom will remain, as well as that walk-in closet area and access to the existing roof deck. Now here's some improvements on the first floor that contribute to the ADU entrance. So to the left is the existing access to the kitchen and second story. As you could see, you could freely move into the first floor and to the second floor. But the applicant is proposing to close off that area, separating access from the first and second floor. And then therefore the ADU would only be able to access the roof deck and not the first floor. Here are the front and rear elevations. And then here are the east and west elevations. Now here is a development standards chart with the RD14 development standards as well as the applicable ADU development standards. Now the proposed attached ADU meets most of the applicable ADU standards, except for that of the maximum floor area for one bedroom, which is 850 square feet. Now the proposed attached ADU has 872 square feet. But pursuant to Dana Point Zoning Code Section 9.07.210, subsection H4, a proposed ADU may deviate from the maximum size requirement with an issuance of a site development permit. More specifically, a proposed ADU may include up to 1,200 square feet of living area. As you can see, this proposed one-bedroom ADU does not exceed the 1,200 square foot requirement. Additionally, as for parking, since this is part of the primary residence, an additional parking stall is not required. And even though an additional parking stall is not required, as you can see, this site can accommodate up to 3 parking spaces. And to conclude, again, the project meets all the applicable ADU development standards as well as the RD14 development standards, and therefore staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve Site Development Permit 24-0031, subject to the findings and conditions included in the draft resolution. At the diocese is some correspondence from HDF supporting the project. I'm here, as well as the property owner is here to answer any of your questions. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you for your staff report. Questions for staff? Commissioner Dingra,
No questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
No questions.
I have two,
Mayor?
please.
Great. Commissioner Opal?
Pardon me, on your development standards chart, for the ADU access, the requirement was for exterior stairs, the proposed said interior, and it said it complied.
So yeah, that's kind of a little funky. So basically, it needs separate access. So it will have separate access
Okay.
from there. So yeah, it's a little funky.
I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, no, you're
And
good.
then, is there any significance of this house being, or this building being in map zone 5?
So yeah, so that's actually part of the ADU update. So as part of the ADU update here, the site location is where the little star is. And if you have non-compliant parking conditions and you're located within map number 5, so there, I believe there's 6 as part of Exhibit A for our local ADU ordinance, a site development permit is required for this project.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, just to follow up on this map we're looking at, what does additional count area mean?
Is that the red portion, Jen, that we have? So the additional red portion is just areas that are also subject to the site development permit.
I think it's primarily, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, because they're adjacent to these areas where parking is impacted. They're right across the street, so it's a double-sided street. So those areas that are adjacent to it are also included as part of ones that could be impacted if they had parking issues and wanted to do an ADU.
Got it. So it's like we should consider the green kind of going, including those reds. Okay.
Any questions? Okay, I got a couple quick questions for you. So the convert, so I guess I'm trying to make sure I understand. The existing roof deck is already there, right?
Yes,
Okay.
there's no construct, nothing new.
So what we're effectively doing is legalizing what's already been converted into an ADU
Mhm.
with the appropriate access. And
Yes,
so if we, they're not actually building any new square footage.
No.
This is all within what's already there. Okay.
exactly.
That was that, great. So I assume then that there's really 2 things we could do here. We could, if we said no, then the applicant would be required to bring the upstairs back into compliance, remove whatever was illegally added, but they'd still have a legal non-conforming status as to the garage.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Perfect. That was all I needed. Thank you. All right. Any more questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We have none.
Okay, then we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a discussion and a motion.
I can make the findings, so I'm in support.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with this. Appreciate that they are actually following through with the requirements of going through the process to get the required variances and permitting to do this legally, but otherwise I'm supportive of it.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, no comments.
All right, I don't have any significant comments. I think it's great to see these get cleaned up. I went by and looked at the property, and it was great to see an empty garage. I think there were some toys on the ground. Looked like maybe a couple kids playing, which means that they could put cars in there if they need to. So that's always helpful, especially in these areas. I too don't see any issue with making the findings. I mean, the work here is really we're not going to see it, but it's going to be helpful to bring it into compliance, and it's with that, it complies with our codes, consistent with our zoning, and I can make all these findings. So with that, I'll look for a motion from the commission.
I'll move that the site development permit SDP 24-0031 to convert the second story of a two-story non-conforming single-family dwelling into a 872 square foot attached ADU with a roof deck located at 34516 Via Verde be approved.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item carries. Congratulations. Moves us on to item 3, coastal development permit CDP 21-0021, site development permit 22-0007, and administrative modification of standards AMS 25-0003. Do we have a staff report?
Yes. Good evening, Chair Nelson, Planning Commissioners, John Champa. I'll be presenting the project before you, which is at 35817 Beach Road. Just to give you a little background in context, the property is located within the Capistrano Beach Community Services District, also known as the Beach Road Community. It's a undeveloped 5,700 square foot lot that's located within the residential Beach Road 12 zoning designation of the city. It is located within the floodplain overlay district, which means that it's subject to coastal flooding and wave action, as well as in the city's coastal zone or coastal overlay, as well as the appeals jurisdiction area of the Coastal Commission. So the scope of work before you is to construct a 4,741 square foot single family residence with an attached 1,564 square foot garage, as well as decks and a balcony on the seaward side of the structure. The coastal development permit is required for the construction of the new home in the coastal zone, as well as a site development permit for development within the floodplain overlay, as well as a administrative modifications of standards for the request for the reduced setbacks for the entry stairs, as well as the seaward stairs that lead to the deck on the seaward side of the structure project. And so here, we've got a little bit of information here is essentially illustrating in color the footprint of the structure. Lighter yellow is the footprint of the garage, which is located 18 feet back from the front yard setback and located landward of the structure string line. However, then when you elevate to the first habitable floor, that's where the footprint does extend to the darker yellow portions of the structure. Where it's allowed to encroach an additional 5 feet into the front yard setback and is proposed at 13 feet for the upper floor, as well as it brings it in alignment with the structure string line setback on the seaward side of the structure. And here you can see the in purple, the proposed projections of the stairs along the front and rear portions of the property. And here you can see on the seaward side, the stairs would project 15 feet beyond the structure string line. Actually, it's 14 feet. That's a correction. To the slide is 14 feet in your staff report, and then 10 feet 5 inches on the landward side of the structure. No improvements are proposed beyond the patio string line, and the mean high tide line was plotted on the site on the civil sheet to identify it being located 43 feet from the patio string line to ensure that it is adequately placed outside of that location. And it is actually, the mean high tide line is seaward of where the current rear property line is located. Here we have the garage floor plan, again illustrating the locations of the stairs at the front of the property and the 18-foot front yard setback. There is an elevator that's proposed at this location, and it is per the city and FEMA regulations, elevators are allowed to be located within the floodplain overlay. One of the few improvements that are allowed at the garage level. The garage is outfitted with breakaway panels to ensure that it is in compliance with the floodplain overlay regulations, as well as any stairs to the upper levels that are located below the future base flood elevation do have open risers to ensure adequate water movement in a storm or flooding event. Here we have the first habitable level, which is primarily living space along with one bedroom. This is elevated again above the garage level. And so the upper levels is again allowed to have a 13-foot front yard setback. And here is where the structure is brought to the structure string line on the seaward side. The balcony on the seaward portion of the structure is allowed to project 8 feet beyond the structure string line in compliance with the special regulations for the Beach Road community in 909040. And then as you can see here, no improvements are proposed beyond the patio string line. Here's the top floor, or the second habitable floor, which is comprised of primarily the bedrooms, as well as an additional seaward balcony, again projecting 8 feet beyond that structure string line, and is also in compliance with the 13-foot front yard setback. So here we have the elevations of the structure reflecting the modern design of the project. And what we have here illustrated in green is the future base flood elevation of the structure to assess where the lowest possible elevation of the horizontal structural elements of the project could be placed. And the project has been found to be in conformance with that. And the elevation of the overall structure is to be measured 18 inches above that future base flood elevation point. So essentially the starting elevation point for evaluating the height is 23.5 feet, since the future base flood elevation is 22 and is in compliance with that. And then here we have some additional elevations for you here on the ocean elevation, as well as the west side elevation. One point we wanted to mention to you in the packet that was sent out, which reflected a modification that was not in the plans that were cleared by planning and other city staff in review of that, was there was a graphic issue or an inconsistency. As you can see here, in bubbled in red, is the building placement was inaccurately located along the side yards and is actually shown to the property line, and then as well as the decks are illustrated projecting beyond the property line. And so there was just a graphic inaccuracy that was completed. And so what we have on the right-hand side here under the corrected elevation is where the building placement is to be located. And so the applicant has provided that updated elevation. And here you can see that the building is set back that 3.5 feet on either side. And then the elevated stairs as well as the deck are shown in compliance with the necessary regulations. So if recommended approval by the Planning Commission, staff would be recommending that an additional condition of approval be added to the project, that the elevations and all improvements associated with the decks and the building placement be in compliance with the city's zoning regulations or something in that regard. So the project, as previously stated, does require a coastal development permit. The project was evaluated to ensure it is in compliance with the city's local coastal program, and it does meet all the applicable development standards with that exception of that administrative modifications to standards. The staff will discuss later in the presentation, as well as public access was evaluated as part of the project. And the placement of the building is very close to Poche Beach, approximately 600 feet. So there is adequate access nearby, as well as to the, we'll call it the north or up coast of the property at Capistrano Beach Park. And given the fact that this is a single lot development that's infill, would not reach the threshold of requiring any additional public access through the community, and there's no impacts to public recreation or environmentally sensitive habitat. So again, the project does require a site development permit due to its location in the floodplain overlay, which is subject to coastal flooding. And the applicant did produce a site-specific wave run-up study that was completed, which identified the future base flood elevation of 22 feet. And that was peer-reviewed by the city's coastal engineering firm, Moffitt Nickel, which did corroborate that that was an appropriate elevation to be utilized, and did go through 2 rounds of review to ensure compliance with that. In addition to that, all of the habitable areas and the lowest horizontal structural elements are elevated above this future base flood elevation, and the lowest level are fitted with breakaway panels or designed with breakaway panels to ensure that that garage level is in compliance with the floodplain overlay regulations. And in regards to the requested administrative modifications to the standards, which is being requested for the entry stairs as well as the seaward stairs to the seaward deck. The uniqueness of the site in terms of the sea level rise and the assessment of where the habitable level is required to be located for the living area, as well as the minimum or the maximum elevation for that seaward deck, which can exceed more than 30 inches above the average pre-graded elevation at the structure string line, creates a delta situation where you have the habitable area being pushed higher and higher to deal with sea level rise and coastal flooding. And then the minimum height required for the seaward deck makes it difficult to locate those stairs within the buildable footprint area. And so therefore, this request has been proposed, which is consistent with other recent new developments that have been proposed through the city and have been approved. And so staff is recommending that as well, consistent application for the seaward stairs, as well as the entry stairs. Here we have an illustration just showing that 9 inches or 9.75 feet of the elevation change between the 2 of these features. And so therefore, just illustrating the delta of the grade change between these 2 elements. So with that, staff has evaluated the project for conformance with the city's local coastal program and has found that it is in conformance with all the necessary findings, as well as the required findings for the coastal development permit as identified in the Coastal Act, and is evaluated the project for all the applicable entitlements and is recommending approval. So with that, that concludes staff's presentation. Staff's available for any questions.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the staff report. Questions for staff? Commissioner Dingra.
Great report, John. Just to clarify, other than the 3 modifications that are administrative, i.e. on the 2 stairs and the sea level rise and the 3rd one, is there anything else that requires modification?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Opal?
Yeah, John, just one quick question. I know that part of your presentation and part of our past approvals for similar homes did have that administrative modification of standard for the stairs. Were they very similar in the distances? Because this was like 10 and a half, I think, in the front and 15 and a half, or 10 and a half in the front and then 14 in the back. Is that very similar to the other ones that we've approved?
Yes, there's been relative ranges, but these proposed encroachments were almost identical to the last 2 that the Planning Commission
Okay,
has seen.
I just didn't recall, so I just want to make sure consistency. Thank you.
Certainly.
Any questions? No. Vice Chair.
Sure. Thank you for the presentation, John. Nicely done. It answered some of my questions already. All right. And just to start with, I mean, I get how, talking about consistency, and the city has kind of a need to approve projects that meet the criteria, applications that meet the criteria. You know, it's fair, and it's kind of in the city's financial interest and my financial interest as a taxpayer and all of that as well, you know, for the property taxes. And I get that. And, you know, these are tricky ones that I harp on about on and on ad nauseum at a certain level. And, you know, I get how these coastal erosion issues are kind of a long-term project, and there's not going to be any silver bullet for it anytime soon. And dealing with areas like this where properties are so valuable makes it even trickier than, you know, in North Carolina, where they can buy a $200,000 house from the property owner. It's a lot easier to kind of manage the retreat away from sensitive areas. I get we're not talking about that right now. So good to see mean high tide line so far away. My only comment about that is just kind of in passing, not even really for this project, but just sad that we have to use the 20-year averages per the 100-year-old legal standard, as opposed to, you know, kind of where someone might experience the mean high tide line today. How tall are the neighbors here? Do you know?
I don't have the neighbor to down coast. However, my understanding is that is also elevated on caissons, but probably closer to the 17 to 19 foot elevation in terms of the base floor. And then to up coast is a vacant lot. And then just up from there is which was approved at the last planning commission hearing where they saw Beach Road House. And then up coast from there is an existing house that was approved by planning commission to be replaced with a new house. So identical in height on the up coast side of the
Okay.
if approved.
Yeah.
Or if developed.
And just reading through the plans on the garage, so those caissons, the garage sits on the caissons, and then do the caissons proceed through the garage up?
There's some around the perimeter that
Okay.
extend up, may not necessarily be on a caisson, but on a steel beam element.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. And so the 14 feet, I was noticing that it starts at, what is that based on again? Like it says FS 14 feet, like it looked like the garage slab starts at 14 feet.
Yes. Yeah. That's the finished surface of the garage slab or at the driveway portion.
And how did that get determined? Just kind of reverse engineering from the 22 feet of the future base floodplain elevation?
So the garage elevations are set pretty close to existing grade conditions.
Okay. Yeah, I saw beach elevation or scour elevation were
Yes.
discussed.
Yeah, and so essentially in determining the wave run-up analysis, there's a number of factors that go into that, which are coastal engineering focused, but essentially the existing grade elevation is factored into that. And what we've seen in terms of the grade elevations for the garages, as well as the future base flood elevations for the habitable portions of the structure to be evaluated, are relatively consistent across the board in terms of newer developments that are coming forward to us, even with some reductions at the Office of Planning and Coastal Commission have reduced the sea level rise numbers from about 6.7 down to about 3.5. We're still seeing relatively similar base flood elevations that are coming through. So across the board, we're seeing consistent numbers there.
Interesting. And then the habitable portion you were talking about. So how is habitable portion defined? Kind of everything except for the garage, or is there some other consideration?
So we have just a general definition for habitable, which is basically where the living area can be. And in this particular application is conditioned area as well. So let's say, for instance, they wanted to have like other improvements down at the garage level to kind of situate some additional walls, or, to create, some additional storage area and carve out some square footage for that. There's very limited improvements that they can do down in that area. And so that's really regulations carried over from FEMA in terms of flood prevention and damage prevention.
Yeah, I think I saw in one of the drawings, there was a bathroom there, but in the drawing you were showing, there wasn't a bathroom down like in the garage. And
Mhm.
So would a bathroom be allowed or?
A bathroom would not be allowed.
All right, good to know, because that was one of my questions. And then in some of those drawings of that bottom deck, there's 3 decks, right?
Technically one deck, which is the lowest, and then off
2
the habitable
balconies.
floors is 2 balconies. Technically, the balcony, it's defined as a balcony because there's no vertical supports.
Yeah, and so just wanted to confirm, it's drawing like E12 or M12 or something like that, where it shows all the cars and then it shows like a couch and a table and a grill. Those would be on that bottom deck, right?
So
Like not
I'm sorry,
inside
E12?
the 1,700-foot garage. I thought for a second that they were fitting it all in there.
Oh, those are like
Yeah.
deck.
That's the deck, right?
Yeah, just deck related improvements.
Because I was gonna say that looks pretty habitable in the garage. if it
Right.
was
Yeah.
a-
So that's
yeah,
on
okay,
that's exposed to the elements.
got it. All right, I'm getting through things here. Thanks for bearing with me. So let's see. All right, yeah, I mean, so it's good that they're not doing shoreline protection. When I still look at the garage, even though it's built with the breakaway panels, it's odd because it's almost a lot like a bulkhead or shoreline protection at a certain level. And I get the breakaway is good, for flood insurance, FEMA purposes. Another issue that, people are familiar with around here is dealing with beach erosion, right? All the talk about it in San Clemente, along the coast generally. And I am still concerned about some of the issues with that in relation to the design, even though, a lot of the house should be pretty good, 22 feet up above. That's a really large garage down at the bottom. And so like in terms of those decks and the balconies, is there any discussion of like consolidating the 3 to 2 at a certain level? I mean, I guess that's their prerogative to just.
That would be at their prerogative, given that what's being proposed is in compliance with the city's regulations. That it would be, up to them to consider if they want to scale back any of the project
Yeah.
at a later date.
Then I guess my just final comment is that, the AMS 14 feet beyond the string line, we heard that how it's challenging to develop within the string lines there. And, a practical difficulty unless the buildable footprint is reduced of the 4,741 feet. But it didn't look like a huge footprint to those stairs, so they could push that into the footprint of the building.
Yeah, I mean, anything's possible in the design elements to reduce the buildable area to provide for the stair access down to the seaward of the structure
Yeah.
string line.
Yeah, no, it seemed like things were still in flux, like the second wine cooler on the second story wasn't in, I think, the drawing you were showing, so good to see that there's things still moving. Although having a second wine cooler sounds nice too. I'm done, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple. When you're looking at these properties, along the beach, and so much of that beach is gone now. And I understand that we have approved a number of these properties. But it's due to the building. If you look at the lots that are the empty lots, they do not have the lack of, it does seem like the development is, and especially like the riprap, it's taking away a beach. So who, if there is further issues, who is responsible for replenishing sand or whatever mitigating issues that are in their beachfront property?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of analysis that's gone into what has resulted in the erosion of the sand and the lack of replenishment of the sand, because there's really kind of a twofold issue.
Mhm.
The city had done a sand erosion monitoring report and study that was completed by UCI Flood Labs just a year or two ago, as well as there's been some other groups that are doing some evaluation in terms of the loss of the sand. And so ultimately, it is a regional issue in terms of the loss of sand. I mean, that's being something that's seen in Dana Point, like
San Clemente.
San Clemente, even in Oceanside. I mean, we saw the Reed, I don't know if you saw the Reed Beach project. So it is a regional issue, and really the littoral cell, it's called the Oceanside Littoral Cell. So it starts in Dana Point and it goes all the way down to La Jolla. And many of those communities are experiencing that issue. Some have shoreline protection, some don't have any shoreline protection, and it's a really challenging situation. So ultimately, whose responsibility is it? Really, everybody everybody has a stake in that, in terms of identifying and finding solutions. The Beach Road community obviously is aware of those, and I think that they would like to help in contributing to adaptive solutions to dealing with that. There's also been some anecdotal assessment in terms of the loss of sand that has really increased since about 2013. And really prior to that, with aerial footage, there's really not a lot of loss of sand until that point in time. There's been some peaks and valleys, but relatively remain constant. And so there's issues related to that need to be evaluated, but it is a regional issue. The county has spearheaded that with a coordinated effort with other municipalities and stakeholders. And we'll be seeing a lot of discussion of that in the near future. They actually created a new staffing position to spearhead that effort.
Okay, and so, but this isn't being developed with riprap, whatever it's called.
Correct. And
Okay.
all of these new developments that have come forward to the Planning Commission are designed elevated on caissons with breakaway panels, actually to limit the amount of erosion that is
Okay.
occurring. So the waves are to go up and over and under those
Yep.
seaward decks, essentially through the garage if necessary, and then roll back. And so there's not a physical obstruction that would result in that erosion that we do see when the seawalls are placed on the
Well,
beach.
and that's, I guess, my concern, which is a different issue, it's a bigger issue, but it's that it is showing that when the ocean is coming up against those, it's pulling the sand back out. Whereas naturally where it is now, when California used to be developed like that, it was, they go kind of up and it would pull sand back with it. Now we're creating artificial things that are just pulling all the sand. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
So,
I'm saying, yeah.
so these developments are intended to mitigate that
Okay.
issue and with one, not rely on any shoreline protection. And there's a deed restriction and waiver that goes into the resolution that when prior to construction, the deed would be recorded to the property that they're not eligible for any shoreline protection. And then in addition to that, just per the FEMA coastal and city regulations, this is design that's been identified to limit and reduce erosion.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, just because if we are allowing for the stairs and other things that are more encroaching on it, it's a concern. So thank you very much.
Any further questions? All right. With that, we will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
We have none.
No speakers. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and a vote. Anybody want to start?
Well,
Commissioner Dingler?
I think it's been greatly appreciated, the presentation that John's made, and I feel that with the base flood elevation being blessed by the city's consultant Moffitt and Nichols, as well as the changes relative to elevations articulated by John, I can make the findings and I'm in support of the project.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just think it's a nice new house on a vacant lot. So developing it within the standards of that general area of Capitol Beach, of Beach Road, consistency with other homes that we've approved, similar size conditions, so I am fully supportive of it.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Vice Chair?
Yeah, I cannot make the findings, in particular the AMS. I have a particular issue with, the practical difficulty of reducing the 404,741 square feet. I don't buy as that much of a practical difficulty. And in addition to that, findings 4 and 5 of the CDP in terms of being sited and designed to prevent impacts to environmentally sensitive habitats and scenic resources, kind of going off what Commissioner Chris Stakes was talking about earlier, the scouring and erosion issues relating to it in terms of that large bulkhead garage kind of out to the string lines pretty much. I don't think it meets that criteria, along with number 5, minimizing the alteration of natural landforms and not resulting in undue risks from geologic and erosional forces and or flood hazards. So I think it's a bit overdone.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. So I don't have a problem making the findings. I think, what gets missed here, it's probably really easy to miss, as you see this, what appears to be a very large building, but if you take away what we require them to do, it's significantly less big. When I say what we require, our floodplain overlay effectively requires, any development to comply with, very specific regulations, set flood-based elevations, wave action. I do think, when I look at the AMS findings, this modification, if you didn't do this, you'd end up with staircases that connected in the middle of the building to get up and down from the deck that we basically require them to build, through our program. And so there's, I think you started with, there's no solutions trade-offs. These are trade-offs. I think they're reasonable and appropriate for a site like this. I can make the findings. It's consistent with our local coastal plan, consistent with our zoning. I don't believe there's any habitat on site within the bounds of the property line. I don't, probably we could argue over whether the fish are going to be damaged or not. I don't know, but I don't see it. So I don't have an issue. And with that, I'll, make the first motion to move this one way or the other, that we approve. What is here? Coastal Development Permit CDP 21-0021, Site Development Permit 22-007, and Administrative Modification Standard AMS 25-003. Do we need that condition added, or is that already in the staff report?
It's not in the staff report, so I would propose a new condition 28 prior to issuance of building permit, that the elevations of the project plans be modified to be in compliance with the city's municipal code.
Correct. I would add that to my motion, and it needs a second.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first by me, a second by Commissioner Opal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's 3-2, so that item carries. Congratulations. Moving on to old business. We have no old business. Do we have any new business? I don't see any on the agenda. Any new business? Nope. Okay, staff reports.
I'd like to just provide a general plan update in that city staff and city consultants are moving forward in terms of finalizing the initial drafts of the circulation and economic development elements. And the final general plan advisory committee will be held on April 22nd, as well as a anticipated planning commission date for rollout will be June 23rd. And then the anticipated planning commission date will be July 15th.
All right. Thank you. Do we have any commissioner comments?
No comments.
Vice Chair?
No comments.
None. I have no comments, which brings us to adjournment. Next to the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission, which will be held here April 28th, 2025, beginning around 6 PM or soon thereafter.